All right. Hello, everybody. I am super excited because we've got an awesome guest on the line this week talking about an awesome topic coming to us all the way from Arizona. A little bit about this person. She's an accountant specifically for course creators. She's a mentor for bookkeepers, and she's the host of the popular podcast, The Ambitious Bookkeeper, which I believe is one of the top podcasts in the world for bookkeepers. When it comes to any, because it's probably the only one, right? No, I'm joking. So when it comes to anything to do with finances, she knows her stuff. And what we're speaking about today is organizing finances for a new business. So without further ado, let me introduce the one and only Serena Shoup. Serena, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today. This is always a pleasure to be able to share, hopefully, my knowledge and make it a little less boring than, people see the topic of finances and they probably just scrolled right on by. So hopefully you're listening.
Yeah, well, I'm the opposite because I like money, Serena. So I figure the more I can kind of understand it, and the more of it I can keep and not blow, the better. And I think that's one of your fortes there. But hey, before we get into speaking about organizing finances for new businesses, let the listeners know a little bit. Like I mentioned a few things in the bio. You're a podcaster, you're a mentor, you're an accountant yourself. Give us a rundown. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? How'd you get into it?
All right. So I am an ex-corporate controller, which basically means I headed the accounting department at a corporation. Specifically, I was in biotech at the end of my career. And I left my, corporate controller position to have more kids. And while I was, out on maternity leave, I guess, I decided, I'm probably never going to go back. So I have this accounting degree. I have the knowledge. I have lots of business knowledge from helping run the business. So I started freelancing and doing bookkeeping. And I'm very ambitious, hence the name of my podcast. And I couldn't just keep it as like a freelance side thing. I was like, I'm just going to go full force and make this a business. But I've always worked part-time. So I was very intentional about the way that I did that. And a year or two into my business, I noticed a lot of the same similar questions coming up from people that were in my shoes. Like they had the accounting background, they maybe wanted a career change or to have a more flexible schedule. And so they wanted to start something on their own, but there really wasn't anything out there for them specifically, someone who has the experience. They just need like the extra like business building and like sales and things like that. That's all required when you go out on your own. So I started mentoring other bookkeepers and accountants. I have my own course and podcast doing that. And I love being able to share what I know with other people and whether it's entrepreneurs or other bookkeepers and accountants so that everyone can kind of figure out what they want and do it their way. So
love it. Yeah. Now, and that's your mentoring side of things, right?
Mentoring side. Yep.
You run your own accounting business specifically for course creators. Let us know a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I didn't start out in that niche, but as I was working on building my mentoring business, I started engaging in different groups and programs around a lot of other course creators.
You were putting together your course and online business. Yeah.
And they needed support too. So I started taking on clients that were in the online course industry, and I knew it very well. I knew a lot of the, the pitfalls with finances and just operationally. And I just kind of fell into this niche, and I love the type of clients that you all are, right? And it's just been a joy to build my business serving this industry. So, yeah.
That's great. And we'll finally get to the topic about organizing finances, but I just want to spend another minute here as well, because I think there's just some really good entrepreneurial lessons there with your journey too, especially a couple of things I picked up there. I think a lot of people, when they start a new business, they kind of have this idea in their head, right? This is what I'm going to do, and it's going to be successful because I think it will be, and I know people want it, and I know people need it, and it's very much kind of on that person there. But what I like about that little journey there is it's like you did that at the start, right? Let me put this course together, blah, 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 blah. But then when you're networking different people, different groups, different programs, whatever it is, you realized a need there. and you're like, hold on, here's where the money is, let me go in there and do it. So I think that's a good lesson for everyone listening to this. Like, you may have your idea and that's fine, and you go through that idea, but after doing some networking and whatnot, you might realize that it's actually a little bit different. And I even recommend that before you start any business, right? It's like, you've got your idea, before you start putting that product together and doing all that stuff there, hey, do a bit of market research and you can find an opportunity there. So I like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
the market research is a very important piece.
yeah, and I think there's a couple things as well. Like, I don't know how to word it, but I like real market research, if that makes sense. I think it's very easy to, do the traditional stuff. You jump on Google and you search your competitors and you see who's got an Amazon book and you see the other products and the prices, and that's okay. That's a good start. But I think there's nothing better than being in a Facebook group and seeing those same questions come up. And then especially if you can have a conversation with that person, hey, I saw you had this question here, just a thought, I'm thinking of putting this together. Is that something you'd be interested? Oh, I'd love that. Or even just a post in that group. Hey, I see a lot of questions in this group here. I'm thinking of putting together something on this. Is this something you'd be interested in? And even today, actually, in my other side of things, my fitness education online business, we kind of work with other course creators as well. They'll put a course together and then we'll sell it to our audience. My rule now is I'm not like, someone will say, hey, Jono, I'm thinking of putting a course together on foam rolling. Shout out JP if you're listening. And I'm like, yeah, look, I think it looks good. But before you put pen to paper, before you record one video, I'm going to make a post in my Facebook group. Say, hey, guys, I'm thinking of putting this course together. Is this something you'd be interested in? Yes or no? And judging on how many comments I get depends on whether I put that course together or not. Now, I'm not saying everyone do that because you need an audience already, blah, 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 but just putting it in perspective a bit. And then the other thing I love about that as well, Serena, is you knew the audience so well because it was essentially you. You're putting the course together. So you're not just trying to guess or from speaking to other people, you've done it yourself. And that's another thing I see. I interviewed a guy on my fitness podcast yesterday, actually, and he's an inventor, believe it or not, a fitness product inventor. He was a physical therapist and a personal trainer. He worked in a physical therapy clinic, and his stuff was just a mess everywhere. He's like, you go into this clinic and there's bands on the floor and medicine balls there and mats here, and you could never find anything. And he was like, oh, this is a mess. You know what? I'm going to design like a shelf to put all this stuff on that everyone can find it and it's easy. So he, created that thing on his own and he put it in there and it was great. And then all the other physical therapists, oh, where'd you get that? Where can I get one of those? And he's like, well, I just made it myself. Let me get the dimensions and I'll sell it to you, blah, blah, blah. Sold a few of them. And then he's like, hold on, I'm onto something here. So I think that's another good message for entrepreneurs listening. It's so much better if you've kind of experienced that problem, you know how to solve it, and then you do it. So love that. Anything to add on your end, Serena, before we move into the topic?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on that, making the post of seeing if people are actually interested. And that's actually exactly how I started my whole course side of the mentoring, was all the same questions. I was like, what if I put all these answers in a little PDF and like gave it away? And they're like, yes, I would love that. And then later I was like, what if I added one more thing? And then I just charged $27 and it just kind of grew from there. So it's really important to like test things out.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's speak about finances. So this is your forte, Serena. Maybe I'll share my kind of take on it, what I do in an online space, and you can kind of go from there. Actually, I'll share my first online course, might be the easiest way. So maybe I'll say I'm tight with my money, or I don't like risking my money if it's not kind of certain, So when I wanted to get into the online space, I was a fitness trainer myself, and I was like, right, I want to put courses together. And I was like, look, I can either do it face to face or I can do it online. And I kind of did the numbers in my head. And I was like, right, if I do it face to face, I got to find a venue to run it. Then I got to liaise with that venue. Then I got to pay that venue. Then I need to, do all the marketing for it. I didn't even think of insurance, but there you go, get the insurance for it. And then I was like, what if I run it and nobody comes? I've wasted all that cash there, or even worse, what if I run it and only one person comes, then I actually need to run the course, at least if no one comes, I can go home. And that's why I went down the online pathway. I was like, hold on, I can create this thing once and there's a lot less risk involved. And then if someone buys it, great, happy days, here you go. If someone doesn't buy it, I haven't really spent anything on it. And I know that the online space has changed a bit, but my first product was just an ebook. So it was essentially Microsoft Word, saved as a PDF, sent to someone on Fiverr, $5 to edit it, and that was kind of it. So that's my take on I'm probably very bootstrapped, but run me through your what you did, what you see. Run me through your thoughts, Serena.
Yeah, I think you sound almost like an accountant that you're like, I don't like to risk my money.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way. Like, just like I said, I started freelancing at first, and I didn't go out and was like, I'm going to build a huge business. I was like, I'm going to test the waters. I'm going to freelance. And then same with the mentoring. I'm just going to test the waters, not going to invest a ton of time or money in software yet. I'm going to put it together, like you said, in a PDF. And, yeah. So if that's your personality, obviously you can bootstrap and do things that way. And another thing that came to mind when you were talking about going online versus local is I've worked with local businesses as well as online businesses, obviously, but I do have some local brick and mortar type businesses that have a storefront. And it is the marketing. You only have so many people in that area that you can bring into your store. The World Wide Web is worldwide. So the potential, even if you're charging a lower price point, it's just going to be, your margins are going to be so much higher. It's going to be so much more profitable because you don't have that same overhead of, a building or a rent or a venue or whatever. And you can reach more people. So we're preaching to the choir. Everyone here listening is already on board with online business, but
true. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to the specifics then. So let's say someone's like, right, I've got an idea anyway. I want to put a course together on this, or I want to put a service together on this, whatever it may be. What do they need to do for financing, or what's kind of the first thing you recommend? Is it the market research we spoke about, or do we do some sums? Your forte. What's your recommendation there, Serena?
Yeah. So I'm thinking back through my process and of starting my bookkeeping business and having it, morph into mentoring and stuff. So I'll kind of share the journey.
Yeah.
With the bookkeeping business, I started out just freelancing on Upwork. So again, zero overhead. All I needed was a computer. I kind of proved my quote unquote process of okay, I am able to help these types of clients virtually. This is the type of client that's more receptive to that. And all so I was kind of doing market research as I went.
Because that's sorry to interrupt. We'll just spend a minute there. Do you want to just, if someone's listening to this and they're not sure what Upwork is that like a Fiverr, or do you want to let us know
it's a lot like Fiverr. It's like a freelance marketplace. I think it originally was called freelancer.com or something like that. Okay. But there's lots of different, you can go on there for graphic design, for developing, bookkeeping, obviously, and accounting. There's tax preparers on there. There's basically any type of consulting that you can think of that doesn't have to be done face to face.
And that's
probably find it on there.
And they take a split. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah.
You give them X%.
Yeah, it's like a marketplace.
Can you let us know those kind of numbers there, or?
Yeah, I think now it's between 10 and 20%.
Yep.
So again, it may not be like your main source of income, but it's a great way to get started. So if you are thinking of, tapping into the online world and you don't have a course yet, that's also a great place for market research to see what people are looking for, because people are posting jobs on there. That's half the work is done for you.
So it's not,
I already.
So hold on, just so I get my head around this, because I'm familiar with Fiverr. There, it's kind of like me searching people. I'd be like, right, I need to get a graphic designer. Let me search graphic design, go through them. So Upwork is the other way, is it? It's the client saying, hey, I need this person, and you'll go and DM them. That's how that kind of works.
Pretty much. You apply, I guess, and give a proposal of what your price would be. Or generally what I do is I just do a little cover letter of, hey, this is what we do. my prices start at this, and I, tackle one of the pain points that they talked about in their job posting. But yeah, half the work is done for you because they're already there looking for someone like you. So I started out that way, and I got my initial client base from there. And at that point, like when I decided to start freelancing, I had already kind of researched the rules and regulations in my area around working from home and online, business. Do I need to charge sales tax? Do I not? Those kinds of things. What kind of licenses do you need? For bookkeeping, you don't need a license, but I'm already a licensed CPA, so it doesn't really, whatever. So I did all that legwork as I was looking for clients, right? And then I also, the other piece that maybe a lot of coaches and consultants may not consider is business insurance, which I brought up earlier with the brick and mortar. I made the decision. I was like, I'm not going to buy insurance for myself until I land my first client. And so I wasn't outlaying any cash really, other than having a computer and an internet connection, which I already had.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, but I figured out what those other things were going to cost once I do land a client. So, okay, well, if my business insurance is going to be $600 a year, I need probably 2 clients and it'll pay for itself in 1 month, right? Or 1 client for 2 months, or whatever your pricing ends up being. So it eases you into kind of like, okay, well, this is how many of this I need to sell in order to cover my initial costs. So doing that kind of legwork is important. And the other piece is tracking what you're spending and making. Initially, like I said, I didn't start out with the intention of really having a business. I was freelancing. So I did not have a separate bank account from the very beginning, but very soon after I did, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and open a new bank account, run all the business stuff through there. I promise, like, even if you only have 1 or 2 transactions, just do it.
Yeah.
Before things get out of hand.
Yeah.
That's like the number one.
It's just so hard otherwise. You don't know how much you're making. And if it's meddled with your personal, like that's one thing in my first business I did pretty quick as well. Because you just have no idea, you got expenses here and money here, and it's just all muddled up. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So let me just summarize a couple of things there. So for any kind of online business, there's obviously business insurance, which is one. There may be licensing depending on what you do. Let's say my background is in fitness. If you're going to be an online fitness coach or fitness course, if you're going to be a personal trainer anyway, you got to keep that registration there. And that's not just fitness. There's other businesses as well, I'm sure you deal with that have those things there. Software and that kind of thing. Serena, what are your do we just bootstrap that from the start in your experience, or do we put some money aside? There's things like Canva, there's, platforms to host your course, there's Zoom, there's Vimeo, what can you tell us there?
I definitely bootstrapped at the beginning. I found all the free, there's a free version of Canva. There's a free version of Zoom. I had a Google Voice number that at that time was free because I ran it through my personal Gmail. I definitely bootstrapped some things. And it is, the barriers to entry on an online business are so low that you can find these things. But even if you want the pay, like even if you start out on the free version, figure out what the paid version is so that how many clients you need to sign or how many students you need to enroll to start paying for the legitimate business tools, right?
Yeah. Awesome. All right, cool. That all makes sense there. And it sounds like the message there's a couple things there as well that I like, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. The starting on Upwork as a freelancer, that sounds like a great idea if possible, because it kind of tests your market demand, but also a lot of the marketing is kind of done for you, because I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people in the online. That's, I think, the one advantage if you are doing stuff face-to-face is people can walk past and see you. Yes, you pay through the roof for that, but people can walk past and see you. It's kind of like if you're just starting off in a new online business and you don't have any followers that's in that kind of niche there, that's a whole nother discussion we can have there. But what's your kind of take on starting on that Upwork side of things? Would you recommend everyone does that to test, to learn, to that kind of thing? Or what's your take in general there?
if they're looking to be some sort of consultant or service provider, I think that's a great option. As a course creator, hopefully you're teaching something that you already have the skills in. And so that's going to be like kind of creating your process. And then you really do kind of have to like engage with people and market yourself. I don't know if there's really any other way around it on the course business.
100%. Well, I'm curious for yours, Serena, because I think there's two different ways you can do it as an expert, right? Let's use fitness. That's a good example, but you're also a perfect example of this. Let's say myself, I was a fitness trainer. When I went online for my courses, I didn't help people get fit though. I helped other fitness professionals, right? Who I didn't have a following of. You know, my following were people that wanted to lose weight, but now I was targeting the personal trainers. Similar to yourself. It's like you went on to help people do their bookkeeping and their taxes, but now you kind of help bookkeepers there. How did you kind of do that side of things? Because you wouldn't have had, obviously you had some colleagues and friends or whatever, but you wouldn't have had a massive following of bookkeepers at the time. How did that come about?
No, it was grassroots. It was me engaging and going in Facebook groups for other bookkeepers, networking with people, sharing my value. And I know you've talked about this on your podcast, but just I did spend a lot of time in those groups. It is time consuming, but I was learning, and I was also sharing what I had already learned and helping my colleagues. And that's kind of the way that I view it. Is there's going to be a lot of people that enter in the profession of bookkeeping that maybe don't have an accounting degree, maybe have never worked under a CPA or another accountant, and they're kind of green, they're kind of brand new. And that was my way of kind of like, let me help the profession be better, of like sharing what I know to these people that maybe didn't have a degree, but it doesn't mean they're not capable, but let me show them the best practices and things like that. So that's kind of the angle I took, was just, it was more about helping everyone else. And while I was doing that, I had been figuring things out too. I was like, oh, this is how I did it. Like, maybe you might want to do this. Or if someone has a question of like, how am I supposed to organize all my client files? And I'd be like, this is how I do it. I mean, I worked at a CPA firm at one point in my career, and this is how it was done. So why not share that?
That's great. Well, I think there's a couple of things there. When you said it's time consuming, yeah, it is time consuming. But you know what's but it's a good time consuming. Well, actually, there's a couple of things. I think yes, it's time consuming, but it helps if you love it. Because if you don't like it, then it's boring and tedious, and you're probably not going to do it properly. But if you love it, yes, it's time consuming, but you kind of love it. But either way, if you don't do that stuff at the start, you're gone in the long run. And I've seen hundreds of course creators, business owners in the situation where they haven't done the initial research, right? They'll go and put this course together. They'll spend a year putting this course together that nobody wants, right?
Yeah.
And they will spend hundreds or thousands of dollars editing software, making it look good. And because they've spent so much time and so much effort creating this thing, you can't give up on it, or they can't give up on it. So they're just going to keep plugging this dead horse because they've spent so much time in it, they can't give up. But if they did that initial market research at the start, they would have realized, well, nobody wants this thing anyway, so I'm not going to put it together. Let me tweak and do something slightly different there. So I think that's great. Let's speak about the marketing, Serena. We'll go a bit deeper on that. So obviously with yourself, you kind of bootstrapped at the start. What did I do? Let me think. So did I as well. I did get into paid advertising fairly quickly though. I'd love to kind of there we go. Well, that's what I wanted to touch on there. And you can speak about yourself or, your experience with clients. At the start, do we get together a marketing budget? Organizing finances in terms of marketing. What's your take there?
So the way that I did it was I did that initial, like that engagement in those groups. And even as I was running ads, I still made sure I was engaging with people and posting organic social content as well.
Yeah.
And just, adding value and a lot of inspiration. It's a lot of inspiration.
Yeah.
Almost more than like the actual tactical stuff.
That's all right. I'm in fitness, Serena. If you you don't feel guilty about doing that, that's 90% of fitness pros, right?
Yeah. So I did that, and I guess some of it was luck of timing, I suppose. But when I finally decided to put together that PDF and charge for it, I had developed the PDF and I actually even pre-sold the PDF. I was like, if I make this, would you pay $27? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Here's a PayPal link. Pay me $27 and I'm going to go make it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And
Right.
we developed it. I want to say maybe February of 2020. I don't know if you know what was happening then, but it was before the ish hit the fan.
That's great.
And
That's
I decided,
so
I was
good.
like,
Whoa. You launched your online course in February 2020.
just a PDF. It was
Wow.
basically a self-liquidating offer at that point.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
so I
That's
did.
so
I
good.
started running ads to it literally when the world was starting to shut down and everyone was like, I'm home anyways. I'm bored. I may as well start a side hustle.
That's great.
And it just, But
Awesome. Well, let's spend
the
a minute.
consistency.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, let's spend a minute there. So, did you have revenue coming in before you started ads?
From that side of the business, no. But
Oh,
from
you
my
had your
bookkeeping, I did. So I had something to kind of fuel and carry me through. So I had my recurring revenue from bookkeeping. And so I was comfortable spending extra time and a little bit of resources, which honestly wasn't much. I paid my designer to put together the PDF for a few hours of her time. And then I linked a credit card to Facebook ads, and as it was selling, it was paying for the ads.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I didn't really have much of a cash outlay with that.
Yeah.
And
what's your question here? Because I think this is a good question here. Should you have revenue coming in before you look at spending on marketing? And where I'm kind of getting at is let's say that person that's running that home business, they haven't got any revenue coming in. Do they dip into the personal to take the risk and run that marketing, or do they borrow some money, or what's your kind of thoughts there?
Yeah, if you think about how a lot of brick and mortar businesses run things, and that's what it is. It is, you contribute your personal money. You get maybe in the US, it's an SBA loan, a small business association loan that, kind of funds Main Street, and you do it that way. But the time that you spend to be able to get approved for that loan is pretty much the same amount of time that you would be, because you've got to put together projections and have like a solid business plan. You could also, I wouldn't really suggest that for an online business. I don't really think it's necessary. Maybe you don't need a ton of revenue. So if you can take on one-on-one coaching client as you're building your course to bring in something to fund the course creation, that's the way to go if you're very risk averse, like you and I.
Yeah, exactly. Or even and here's the thing, obviously that's best if you can do that there, but it might even be a matter of go drive Uber, go pull beers at the pub on Saturday night, maybe there's some, if you're short on cash, if it's the household budget it is what it is, I got nothing left to move, find some cash there originally. And all right, cool. Now I've got that $50-$100 coming in. I'm going to spend that on the bit, and then from there. So cool. So that,
and you could absolutely start with like a business loan, or put the initial ad spend on your credit card, but you have to be very dedicated to monitoring those ads to make sure they're working and paying for themselves, and pivoting if you need to, right?
Yep, 100%. Now, question with that. Sounds like you did the ads yourself. You didn't kind of outsource and get some. Yeah, okay.
I did. I learned some really basic ad management from, I think it was a bonus inside of Amy Porterfield's List Builder Society course.
Nice. Yep.
So that was really that was how I built my initial 100 people on my list, was through that SLO. I also was profitable on it because ads were very cheap at that point. I've never since have I gotten 50 cents of,
oh wow,
for
50 cents a lead,
whatever.
50 cents a lead. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's one of those things.
It was unheard of.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good message for entrepreneurs as well. So I didn't have that price during COVID, but I started running Facebook ad 2014, 2015, right? When they were kind of brand new. And that was kind of the going rate. It was about $1 or $2 a lead. Now I'm paying $10 to $15 a lead, nothing's changed. The ads are the same, the products are the same, the audience is the same. It's just that it's so much more competitive now. So I think it's a good lesson for entrepreneurs listening. If something if you see that opportunity and you're like, right, this is really good, go hard at it, because you may never get that opportunity again.
Yeah. And that's one thing that has actually been recently coming up with some of the clients that we work with, is they're feeling like their business is slowing down, because in comparison to 2020, when maybe they started or they really started ramping up, they feel like things are much slower now.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening is we're getting back to our normal economy and the normal sales volume. People are not at home anymore doing online courses as much as they were, and they're more savvy. So it's just, I think things are just leveling out. So a word of encouragement, if you're feeling like that in your online business with your course creation business, this is where things are going to be, probably, right? You got to work harder at your marketing or your messaging, and maybe tweak some pricing, because that's the other thing too, right? The inflationary period, people are less likely to spend as much. So maybe you need to actually run some sales or decrease prices for a bit, and you never know.
Yep. All right. So I got a couple of questions for you here, Serena, in terms of finances for new business. So we've spoken about loans. We've spoken about dipping into the personal. What about borrowing? I'll give a couple things and give me your take on them. Borrowing off friends and family. Let's even start there.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
So I do have a friend client that she has borrowed from family, really, and I personally would not. I just don't have that kind of relationship with anyone in my family. I've never really even lent money to anybody in my family or friends. So for me, that feels very uncomfortable.
Yep.
I would say if you're going to go down that route, treat it like you're borrowing from a bank, make it legitimate, have a contract, have an interest rate. Also, you're supposed to anyways, and make sure they see put together like a business plan or a marketing plan, so they know what's happening with their money. And that's how I personally would handle it. If I were to go down that road.
Nope.
But it can also ruin relationships and friendships and things like that. So tread lightly.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, but I just thought it fits in there, so I got to ask that question. Okay. What about around, and I'll ask this in a few different ways, business partners? And if you're doing it more, because there's a couple things with that. It could be business partners for the IP side of things, or it could be business partners for the finance side of things, or for the workload side of things. Let me know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is also a really good topic to explore, because a lot of people will see they have these, for lack of less corporate-y jargon, synergies with another course creator or whatever. And they're like, if we joined forces, we could just reach the moon, right?
Yep.
And while that may be true, sometimes they don't really take into consideration, maybe you guys are actually in the same kind of zone of genius, and things would create conflict later on. So if you're going to go down the route of doing an actual partnership where you are sharing in the profits and the expenses and everything in your business, definitely have a contract. Also plan for what the breakup would look like, just to cover your bases, so that friendships aren't destroyed. And my other recommendation is to make sure you are bringing on a partner that has completely different strengths than you, so that there is someone is responsible for this, part of the business, and the other person is responsible for this because that's their strength. Otherwise, you're going to end up with kind of like crossover and differing opinions and things like that. And that's when it gets messy. So those are my top tips for partnerships. And then there's like what you were talking about, more of the joint venture, which isn't really a legal entity like a partnership is, where it's like, okay, we're going to join together and do a collaboration, which is great because I actually have this happening right now. I have collaborated with someone who specializes in Dubs Auto in setting up, which is a a CRM pretty much that does proposals and contracts and invoicing for creatives. And that's what we use in our firm to give our clients a proposal, an engagement letter, and their first invoice. And so this is an area that I've shown a lot of other bookkeepers how to set it up. But I decided to quote unquote partner or collaborate in this instance with someone who is certified in that software to make the course a really great experience for everybody, instead of me like haphazardly showing people on a screen share what I did. So we've put our resources together. She's using my templates and my workflows and the way that we run our bookkeeping business to create a course for other bookkeepers to show them exactly how to set it up. And she knows her way around the software. So we came up with a joint venture agreement that is affiliate partnership and royalties. So we're having a lawyer draw up the agreement. Again, it's not like we're not combining businesses. It's just one course that we're putting together as a collaboration, but it's kind of all of my intellectual property and her genius with making it happen in the software and her ability to make better screen recordings than me.
Well, I'll add in there as well. I think so. As a business owner, I think your IP is, or equity in your business, is probably the most valuable thing you have. So if you're looking at getting in a partnership, like you're giving away the most valuable thing there, it may be worth it, as Serena mentioned, if there's completely different skill sets there, an easy one might be someone, actually, I'll give an example here and it'll probably work either ways. Could be like, let's say you've got a skill set, you're the content creator, but you hate marketing, right? You may be able to pair with someone like that. You do all the content, they do all the sales and marketing, and then the partnership works well like that. But in saying that, it could also be, is it worth giving up 50% of your equity for that? Or do you just hire a marketing person, right? And I think it's harder at the start, because at the start, you kind of got nothing. All you've really got is your time, right? So you're like, right, I've got limited time. I'll give up 50% of equity to give, so that person also essentially works with me and we grow faster. But the limitation for that is, in the long term, it doesn't always work well, because when you start to make more money, you're like, well, hold on, I could have just outsourced that role for $1,000 a month or a couple $1,000 a month, but now I'm giving this person 50% of my equity, and that could be $5, $10, $15, $20, $50,000 a month just to kind of do that there. So I think that's something to consider.
I've absolutely seen that happen, and then making it worse, having the other partner that they brought in not really carrying their weight, but they're still getting their share. And so that can breed a lot of resentment and conflict.
Well, the other thing with that as well, right, is even just different ambition levels, because often you'll have one person who's like the driver, and it's like, right, I want to do this. I want to make $1 million online. I'm going to, wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and work, burn the midnight oil. This is really what I want to do. And then the other person's like, it's just a side thing for me. I just want to, live life on the beach and work a couple of hours online. No, there's no right or wrong there.
Right.
Both people are entitled to, to live the lifestyle they want. But you're going to have some disparity there if that's an equal partnership, right? So I think that's an important thing to consider too. All right. So on that note, this one, look, it's probably not super specific for most course creators listening, but I want to bring it up anyway, because I think it's on topic and it might be more specific for those people that have like softwares or that kind of thing there. And that's investors. Any thoughts on, like, if someone wants to invest in your business, they're not going to take care of any of the running or the IP or anything, but they're saying, hey, I think you're on a good thing. I want to be an investor, yada, yada, yada. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So typically an investor will still take on an advisory role because they want to make sure that their money is being handled properly, which brings me to, if you do want to work with an investor, and this also goes with getting a bank loan, you do need to have accurate financials and a plan for going forward. So like a forecast and a budget. Any savvy investor is going to want to do what we call due diligence and actually see your books and records. So digging into your financial software, looking at your reports, and they're going to have lots of questions. So if you have that in your, in your future, or you've thought about it and you don't have a bookkeeper or an accountant yet, that's your first step. Just going to plug my profession real quick, but no real savvy investor is going to want to partner with you if you don't have your books in order, because they're not going to think you're serious.
Awesome.
So,
Now, question with that. This is probably also not a course creator one, but just a curious one. I've heard this this term, angel investors, right? I don't really know what it is. It sounds, it can't be as good as it sounds. Like, I'm sure a lot of these people are just angel in name only, right? I'm sure they're not just throwing away thousands of dollars in between trips to the soup kitchen and that kind of stuff. Like, what's an angel investor?
yeah, I mean, I don't know an official definition, but what I know about angel investing is there's something called private equity firms who manage a huge portfolio of investing in businesses, whether it's biotech or software tech or women-owned businesses, whatever. They'll have like a specific niche of types of businesses that they invest in, and they pool together money from lots of investors. That's what a private equity firm does.
Okay.
An angel investor, I believe, is more of like you as a person, the angel as a person, going in and investing as a single person instead of as a pool with other investors. So working with an angel investor, you may or may not get like a huge chunk. It just depends on what they're comfortable investing. It could be $50,000. It could be millions, depending on how wealthy they are and how much they have to lose, because it's super risky.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, that clears
and
it
they
up
will
a bit.
typically take on more of an advisor, be more involved in the advisory of the business. Kind of like if you have a board or a board of directors, they'll want to sit on your board and make sure they keep an eye on their money, what's happening with it. So.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, hey, Serena, this has been great. This is pretty much all I wanted to get through there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are like, right, Serena's on top of her stuff. I want to, follow her to keep my taxes on track and my bookkeeping on track. Best place we go to follow you?
Yeah, probably Instagram. I'm at, of course, Bookkeeping on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, which is how you and I have connected. Just Serena Shoup on LinkedIn. And you can always check out my website to see what kind of services we offer. It's just, of course, bookkeeping.com. So
awesome. All right. Anything you wanted to finish us off with, Serena, or anything I should have asked you but forgot to? I
mean, I could spend all day talking about this, but no, basically, and the other thing I wanted to add too, and this isn't necessarily like a bookkeeping or accounting thing, but one thing that when clients come to us to work with us, there's always this sense of like shame and fear of opening up their finances and all their bad habits to us.
Yeah.
But we're used to it, and a good accountant isn't going to make you feel like crap for it.
Yeah.
So
that's like me at the dentist. I never want to go because I just know they're going to yell at me for not flossing my teeth. So
I always floss like the week before the dentist.
Yeah. I extend whenever I get that booking. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm busy. Can we do it a month later? And I'm just really good for a month. And I figured whether that buys me some goodwill or not, I don't know. But yeah, I do it. But you know what? That's probably a good thing as well for course creators or online business owners before they go to a bookkeeper. Hey, at least do a bit of work the month beforehand or a couple weeks beforehand, getting your stuff in order, because that'll just make it way easier for you than a complete mess, right?
Yeah. And honestly, like even just knowing about your business, like understanding what your monthly revenue is, what your monthly expenses are. And if you can't figure that out, you definitely need a bookkeeper.
Yeah. But even the documents as well, like if you go to that bookkeeper, hey, what have you got? Do you use Xero over there? Or is that
yes, that's what we use exclusively for our clients.
Yeah.
It's very popular in other countries. I have to market it very well to my clients, but for the most part, they're pretty receptive to switching over. And I do believe it's the best option for course creators.
Yeah. Even in Australia, I think like 9 out of 10 businesses use Xero.
It started there. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Awesome. All right, Serena. Well, hey, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.